Hello everyone, welcome to this week's video from the Purple Penny. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine. The Purple Penny's a small family owned coin and banknote dealer. We're in Mawson Lakes, which is in the northern suburbs of Adelaide. Adelaide being the capital of South Australia. We've been here for 6 or 7 years and doing these videos on most Mondays for almost all of that time. We try to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the world of coins and banknotes, talk about new releases, and most days we try to have a topic of the day where we educate you people out there on the knowledge that we've picked up after doing this for as long as we've been doing it. So before we get started, we'll just say a few hellos to the people who've joined in live today. Hello Sam, Patrick, Gwen, JJ, Tom and Daryl. Thank you for joining in today. I've got 4 days of push-ups left, as I've said for the last few weeks. I've been doing the push-up challenge, and the money I'm raising is being donated to Headspace, which is a charity for the mental health of young people. 4 more days to go, so if you feel like making a donation, you'll find a link in the description here on Facebook, and when this video goes over to YouTube, there'll be a link there too. So if you do donate, thank you in advance for that. Hello John, thank you for joining in. A little bit of news this week. Thank you to Catherine for supplying me with some news out of the paper yesterday, and to Peter Andrews for giving me a bit of a report on the Perth ANDA show. So we'll start off with that today. The ANDA Coin and Banknote Expo was on in Perth last weekend. Peter did note that the taxi drivers he used knew exactly where it was, because the Perth Numismatic Society has a coin show every couple of months in Perth, so coin shows are quite a regular thing over there. He said that prior to opening there were 200 people lined up outside, and most people were looking for the ANDA or Perth Mint or Australia Post specials. And his comments on the inventory that was on display, it was mostly mint product. There was very little pre-decimal coins or errors or that sort of stuff. On Saturday it was busy, very busy until 2 p.m, and it was quiet on Sunday. He spoke to the dealers at the end of the show on Sunday, and they were all happy with how it went for them. He did point out that IAG were there with a 1930 penny on display, which is probably the finest known circulation 1930 penny, with mint red, and he believed it would probably grade AU58 if it went to PCGS. He believes that that's going to be up for auction next year. So if you're in the market for a very expensive 1930 penny, keep an eye out with IAG auctions. Thank you to Peter Andrews for supplying me with that content. It is much appreciated. The Bluey coin theft saga is continuing. You might remember, I think this is about the 4th or 5th time I've talked about this. Just after the Bluey release in the middle of the year last year, it was reported that $63,000 coins had been stolen from a warehouse in Western Sydney, a transport depot. And they were you might remember when the Bluey coins were released, you could get 2 designs of the dollar coins through the tills. They were those coins, and in the ensuing months they had arrested 2 men and a woman, and they had recovered, as you can see in the picture there, several thousand of the coins that had been stolen. Apparently most of them had already been sold though through social media or Facebook Marketplace. Anyway, the charges have been laid against those perpetrators. The 2 men involved have been charged with aggravated break and enter, and they've pled guilty. A woman has also been charged with the same, and she's yet to enter a plea. So here we are, almost a year to the day after those coins were stolen, and we're still going through that process. So I hope the law comes down hard on those people. Next item in the news is more stolen coins. If you know your history, you'd know that the Indonesia back in the 15s and 1600s was known as the Dutch East Indies. In fact, it was known as the Dutch East Indies up until World War II, and it was at one point the Dutch East Indies Company was the biggest company in the world, and they would regularly send ships from the Netherlands to the Dutch East Indies, and the path that those ships would take would be down the west coast of Africa, around the Cape of Good Hope at the bottom of South Africa, and then due east until they hit the coast of Australia. Well, hopefully they didn't hit the coast of Australia, and then north to Indonesia. Unfortunately, some of them did hit the coast of Australia, and there are 4 Dutch merchantman wrecks that have been found off the coast of Western Australia, and they weren't discovered until the 1950s or 1960s, and by federal law the content of those shipwrecks belongs to the federal government. So that means that you're not allowed to dive on those wrecks and remove artefacts without a permit. And even if you do have that permit, those coins still remain the property of the Australian government. The West Australian Museum maintains a certificate and registry system for those coins, so you can buy coins from the shipwrecks in Western Australia, but they come with a certificate and they still remain the property of the government, so you are just a temporary owner of them. Just in the last few months of last year, it became aware to authorities that someone had dived on the wreck of the Zoutdorp, which was wrecked in 1712 off the coast of Western Australia. That ship contained about 128,000 Dutch silver coins, and someone had been had dived on that wreck probably the beginning of last year, and 3 coins were seized in September, and then a couple of months later someone was intercepted at the Perth International Airport, and they had 15 coins confiscated from them, and then just a couple of weeks later another 88 coins were seized from a home. And all of those coins were passed back to the West Australian Museum last week, where they've been recorded and put into storage. So it is illegal to dive on those shipwrecks in Western Australia without a permit, and even if you do have that permit, anything you find does not belong to you. It belongs to the federal government, and the Western Australian Museum administers the ownership of those particular items. We've never had any of those shipwreck coins here in the shop. I'd love to be able to purchase one day. We have had some come in that didn't get sold to us, and if you are interested in buying some, you could have a look at Perhaps Sterling Currency, Andrew Crellin in Western Australia. He sometimes has them up on his website, but do be prepared to pay for them because they are quite expensive. Now, last week silver hit an all-time high in Australian dollar terms. It hit a high on June 16th, which is a week ago today, of $57.42, which is an all-time high in Australian dollar terms. It's not an all-time high in US dollar terms. In fact, on that particular day, it was only the highest silver price in US dollar terms for 13 years. We've got to remember that here in Australia we trade in Australian dollars, and the exchange rate comes into effect when you're considering the prices. I've told people many times before, don't listen to the bullion prices on the news media because they always quote those in US dollars, and of course we buy and sell in Australian dollars here. Now, you might think, well, that's fantastic, $57.42 on June 16th, but if you look back through the history of the silver price here in Australia, back in 2012 it was just under $50 an ounce and then fell back quite a lot, but in early 1980, on January the 17th, the price was $55.47. So obviously if you bought at that peak, you basically had to wait 45 years until you got your money back. So not a great investment. But that being said, silver has gone up, has almost doubled in the last 5 years. So not a bad return on investment if you bought it 5 years ago. What does that mean in terms of value of things? It means that a 50% silver florin, Australian florins were 50% silver from 1946 to 1963, has $10.43 worth of silver in it. A 92.5% silver florin, our florins were 92.5% silver from 1910 to 1945, has $19.31 of silver in it. And a 1966 50 cent has $19.53 of silver in it. And one of those humble silver $10 coins that were released from the mid-80s until the mid-1990s, they're 20 grams of sterling silver, has $34.15 of silver. Now, what does that mean to us as collectors? It means that if you are looking for lower grade coins, you are going to have to pay more for them, because it is very difficult to buy silver for under the spot price. It also means that any silver coins that are turned into bullion dealers who refine their silver are going to be lost. And it is fairly well recorded that as silver spikes, more and more coins do get refined down to bars, and they are lost to collectors. So, if you're entering the market to buy these coins, them disappearing means you're going to have to pay more. But I guess if you already hold them, then the price is high, and that's a good thing for you. We'll just say a few more hellos here before we continue on. Hello Nelson, hello Ray, hello Stuart, hello Peter, hello Edge, and Sam says, when our silver reserves deplete, prices will slowly rise. I don't know anything about the background to the silver price and what drives it, so I can't comment on that. The Mint announced a release last week. We're getting $2 coins for the 35th anniversary of the Torres Strait Islander flag, which is a flag that you may or may know what that looks like. It's a headdress. There are 3 products being released: a coloured C Mint Mark coin on a card for $22.50, a coloured fine silver proof in a box for $90, and through authorised dealers only, we're getting the $2 circulating coins in rolls. We don't know if they're being released into circulation, and that's it. That's all we really know. The release date and time is Thursday the 3rd of July, first Thursday of the month at 8 o'clock Adelaide time. If you are interested in putting your name down for an interest list for the coloured C Mint Mark carded coin or the premium $2 roll, feel free to contact us, especially if you're here in Adelaide and come in and pick it up. Of course, the thing that's going to be in demand is the fine silver proof coin. So if you are after one of those, I do encourage you to enter the ballot to try and get one of those. I believe there'll be a ballot for the carded coins and this fine silver proof. The roll is only available through authorised RAM dealers, not available through the ballot, and the Mint generally doesn't make it too public that the rolls are available. So if you need a roll, reach out to us and we'll put your name down, and if we get enough inventory, we may be able to allocate you something on release day. Now, Nelson says, is it legal to melt down pre-decimal coins to silver? Nelson, don't know. Hello Mark, how are you? Now, that's it for the news this week. There was a little bit of news that came up just through a purchase that we made through the shop. So I bought 2 counterfeit florins last week, modern counterfeit florins. One was a 1936, and it was not silver. It was some mix of nickel and zinc and copper, but visually at least it wasn't too bad. It didn't get past me, but visually at least it wasn't too bad. This one here that I'm showing here is a 1925 florin, fake florin, which immediately stood out to me as being fake. Now, when I weighed it, it weighed exactly the right amount at 11.3 grams. And when I tested it on the XRF, it came up as 94% silver and 6% copper, which is about right for a florin. I've certainly seen sterling silver florins test that high before, so nothing wrong with the weight and the composition. But the actual coin itself did look wrong, and the best way I can describe it is that the obverse side of the coin is showing uncirculated detail. So if you look at the image on the left there, you can see the full band of the King's Crown is present, including centre diamond and all the pearls and things like that. Moustache is all there. But on the reverse side, or the tail side of the coin, the kangaroo is quite flat, the emu is quite flat, the star is quite flat. Advanced Australia in the banner at the bottom of the arms there is mostly there. A little bit of it is missing, so it's a bit strange in that one side appears to be uncirculated and the reverse, I would say, is fine. So that was number 1 red flag. Number 2 red flag was that the fields were very flat and mirror-like. Now, that doesn't necessarily preclude a real coin from having flat and mirror-like fields, but generally coins back then don't look like that. They have cartwheel luster, so they're struck from dies that don't necessarily have polished surfaces, so as they're struck, the coin gets microscopic striations in it, and you get that cartwheel luster. You don't get that mirrored finish. You do on some proof coins back then, or pennies and half pennies. We've had a couple of proof pre-1956 coins before, and they do have somewhat mirror-like fields, but not like this. It looks quite unnatural. The other thing is that all of the devices, so the devices are everything other than the flat fields, the lettering, the emu, the king, they look quite frosted. And from what I understand, that just comes from the digital manipulation that these counterfeiters use. Basically what they do is they 3D scan the geometry of the coin into a computer, and then they touch it up digitally, and then they use that 3D geometry to create coin dies through EDM or some other machining technique, and then actually strike the coins, strike the counterfeits with those fake dies. And one way of touching that up is to apply a frosting to the high points of the coin design, which are the low points of the dies, and that's a digital frosting, and then as that's transferred to the dies when they're made, you get that sort of weird frosting appearing on everything. Now again, frosting does appear on coins. We would know that from Australian proof coins. They all have frosted devices, but they didn't have it back in 1925 when they were making these florins. So, you know, to me, an obvious fake, but a dangerous fake. And why is it a dangerous fake? It's because as a collector and a coin dealer, you should always be wary of key date coins that are in suspiciously good condition, 1925 pennies, 1932 florins, centenary florins and things like that. But we aren't necessarily immediately suspicious of non-key date coins in good condition. So a 1925 florin isn't a particularly sought after coin, but you know, in uncirculated grades like most King George V florins, it is sought after. This one could perhaps be put into a florin collection and slip past someone and get passed off as a real coin, and someone has paid perhaps several $100s for it. Now that is a real problem as far as I'm concerned. Now you have to wonder why this was made in the first place, and why it's made out of silver. It can't have been a cheap thing to buy. Someone still has to make this and come up with the silver and things like that, so you know, it's obviously probably come from China, I would say, and probably bought online. We've seen fake centenary florins that are made out of silver as well, and you know, they aren't cheap to buy. They're still $50 or $100 or something. So you'd have to question why someone would buy it in the first place, and it's too much for a space filler. So I think, you know, people buy these things to deliberately try and pass them off. Luckily in this case it didn't slip past me. But if you are buying high value pre-decimal coins, please follow my advice, which is to only buy from reputable sources. That's so dealers, eBay sellers with long established history. And if you are not sure, then don't buy it, otherwise you will waste your money, because this coin is literally worth about $20 in silver and not 1 cent more as far as I'm concerned. Now I've done this topic a few times before, but I thought it'd be interesting to just visit again, because of two things. One is that we do get asked quite often here in the shop, and I did a couple times last week, is should I get this coin graded? You know, insert some random coin here. Now, that ranges from people that have found coins and change, they want to get circulated coins and change graded, to people who have bought the latest mint product, the latest coin release from the mint, and want to get that graded. Now, of course, people's motivations for getting things graded are different, but the majority of the times people think that there's some sort of financial gain in it. And last week at auction in Queensland, there were two interesting results. One, an MS70 Mars $2 coin. So MS70 is the highest grade, sold for $3,100 plus premium, which is just under $4,000 in total, which, on the surface doesn't sound like a great result. But what was more interesting was a PR70 1971 5-cent piece that was that sold for $4,100 plus buyer's commission. So the buyer's commission is almost $1,000. So that coin has cost someone over $5,000. And you scratch your head and you go, well, why did the Mars coin only sell for about $3,900 when everyone knows what that is and everyone wants one and everyone talks about it, whereas the supposedly innocuous 1971 proof 5-cent and PR70 sell for over $5,000? And the answer is, of course, that there are only two PR70 1971 5-cent pieces, and there are many MS70 Mars coins, several. And the people that can afford to buy an MS70 Mars coin have already bought one, and as the supply outstrips demand, obviously the price falls. Whereas the 5-cent piece, the people that are playing the PCGS registry set game, that have a bigger budget for their hobby than perhaps what you or I do, they want that PR70 so that they can move up in the rankings, and such the price reaches what it does. So people cherry pick those results and they go, oh, well, I'll just get my stuff graded because I'm going to make thousands and thousands of dollars. And of course, the answer to that is you won't, because it is much more complicated to that. So what are people asking? What do people say? People say to us, should I get this graded? What will the grade be? What will it be worth? But what they're really asking is, of course, what that picture down below there says. They're asking how much money can they make out of getting something graded. They jump online and they see a graded wavy 20-cent piece from 1966 selling for $3,000, and they think, well, every 1966 piece, 20-cent piece must be worth that. We get people coming in here that perhaps are new to the hobby, and they stand at our big cabinet out the front looking at the graded decimal coins, and they look in there and they see some familiar designs in PCGS slabs, and they get out their wallets or their purse and they start flipping through the coins that are in their wallet or purse, and you can just see their eyes widening, like, well, why is this Millennium 50-cent piece worth $800? Why is this windmill 50-cent piece worth $80? Why is this Captain Cook 50-cent piece worth $75? And of course it's because they're graded and they've achieved a certain number on them. So there's that, I guess, lack of knowledge there. But there's also, for that PR70 1971 5-cent piece, I wonder how many coins the submitter that got that grade had submitted to get that particular coin, because in my experience, those sorts of high graded proof coins, the very top population, if it is very small, does achieve an excellent price, but perhaps the PR68s or the PR69s, you don't even get your grading fee back. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that the cost of getting the coin authenticated and graded, often you don't recover that. So it is, for the people that do this to try and make money out of it, it is a real gamble. And you might look at that $4,100 and go, my gosh, that person has made out like a bandit, and they have. But if they've sent another 100 coins, at $50 or $60 a pop, then they haven't made out like a bandit at all. And if you don't believe me, go and have a look at auctions of common decimal PCGS graded coins on eBay. This is a box of 5-cent pieces in here. I mean, we don't get a lot of coins graded anymore. We certainly don't get a lot of decimal coins graded anymore, but we do get quite a few coins coming in as collections, and often they are just the low graded, common decimal coins that, when PCGS grading was just taking off here in Australia, and there were some big dealers in the eastern states sending over hundreds and hundreds of proof sets and mint sets with little or no concern to what the coins look like, just searching for those top pop coins. And we ended up with, what's this? 1995 5 cent and MS67. Now I have no idea if that's a high grade or a low grade, but doesn't strike me as being particularly significant. It's almost certainly come out of a mint set. A 1984 5 cent and MS66. Now I know that's a very common grade, so that's this coin here, and certainly that coin would not be worth the grading fee. And what's the grading fee for something like this? Well, if you were to just send one 5 cent piece, it's well over $100. If you were to send 100 decimal coins, and perhaps you could get the cost down to about $40 or so. And there's no way that coin is worth $40. And in a more mature market, like in the USA, high-graded common decimal coins literally sell for $3 or $4. And you can go to coin shows in the USA, and dealers have cardboard boxes full of common coins that aren't top pops or even high pops, selling for $3 or $4 each, just to try and get recover some of their money back. So rather than asking the question, should I get this grade, what will the grade be and what will it be worth, you should really be asking yourself all of these questions, which is, do I know the PCGS market for this coin? So do I actually understand where the market is with it? Is the market going up? Is it going down? Do I understand what the demand is for MS67s and MS68s and MS69s? Do I understand that there are already 50 MS70s or 50 PR70s? Do I understand where the market is for that particular coin? Do I even understand PCGS grades? And of course, if you've been around coins for a little while, you will remember there was a supposed coin grader over in New South Wales who had a name very similar to PCGS, and when they got started, they didn't understand the Sheldon grading system at all, and many of their slabs had made up grades on them, and imaginary numbers and things like that. And I know it seems ridiculous that a coin grading company could do that, but they did it, and certainly a lot of collectors, when they're getting into it, they're blinded by those dollar signs in their eyes, and they don't know how the PCGS grading system works, or even what the Sheldon grading system is. Will the coin grade? So, PCGS do not grade coins that have been harshly cleaned or environmentally damaged or those sorts of things. And you can't rely on the grade that is written on a holder from a dealer or something like that. The dealer might not know what they're doing any more than you do. The good example of that is the 2012 gold poppy $2 coin. A number of people pulled those coins out of a dealer in Melbourne's presentation cards. They were selling them in presentation cards, and sent them over to PCGS, and they all came back with details grades on them saying that they were cleaned. And I can tell you that when I see those dealers' cards from Melbourne that have those 2012 gold poppies in them, they are always cleaned. So clearly something went on over there when those coins were put into cards, and they were all clean before they went in there. So, if you can't look at a coin and know whether it's going to be graded or not, you have to question whether you should get it graded at all. Now, of course, the motivations for getting things graded might be something other than dollars, but I've got to say, most of the time, most people are only interested in what the value is. So, if it's just to authenticate something, and Jason said that his motivation for getting things graded is authentication. So if you've got a 1923 halfpenny or a 1930 penny or a 32 florin, or, a nice token or an ancient coin or something like that, then getting it graded for the sake of authenticity is a perfectly good reason. And maybe because of that, the actual grade or what result comes back is inconsequential to you, and that's fine. You could do it for preservation. So for example, I would get a 1930 graded penny graded just to put it in that hard plastic holder and just protect it for the future. The next one is financial gain, and that's the hardest one to accomplish. It's very difficult, and certainly difficult enough that Catherine and I don't bother with decimal coins much anymore. You might do it to put it in your registry set, or just because. So the first few coins that I got graded, I did them just because I wanted to understand the process. And the very first coin I ever got graded came back cleaned. So, you know, I've made all these mistakes as well, which I think allows me to perhaps comment on them, because I have made those mistakes myself. Do you understand the cost and the time frame? So it does cost real money. An error could cost $300 or $400. A single error could cost $300 or $400. A single decimal coin, if you send it with one order, because there is a handling fee, a shipping fee, an insurance fee, and then the grading fee, that could end up costing you over $100 for a single coin. So it's always better to send more than one, and then you've got to weigh up whether it's cheaper to send it yourself or to send it through a third-party service like Drake Sterling or Imperial Coins or Cockatoo Coins or any of those PCGS authorised submitters. And do you understand how long it takes? These things take a long time. And why do you need to know that? One is that you need to be comfortable with your coins being gone for several months. Two is that you might think that I'm going to jump on the decimal coin latest released bandwagon, and then your coin's gone for 6 months and the whole market has moved on to something else, and the bandwagon has driven away and you've fallen off the back of that wagon, unfortunately. So, you know, there are people, when a new release happens, that will send their coins to PCGS Express, so use the Express submission level just to get it graded faster, to try and capitalise on that hysteria that we get when coins are first released. And, you know, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've been told that there were people that flew over to America and took new release coins over there, $2 coins over there, to get them graded, and then flew back here with them just to ensure that they were the first ones to the market. And, you know, why do you do that? It's because people, they can't wait and they can't be patient. So they've got to have the first MS69 or the first PR70, and they'll pay out of the nose for it. But, you know, my opinion is you always, you know, if you're going to buy graded coins, is to just let the market mature a little bit and get an idea of how a particular release grades, because not all coin releases achieve the same grade distribution. Some of them are better than others. And then, you know, perhaps to buy things a bit later when the prices have calmed down a little bit. That's if you're interested in buying graded, of course. And I guess the last one is, are you prepared to lose money? Because there are no sure things in trying to make money out of coins. We lose money on coins, you know. I don't complain about it or whinge about it. I try to learn a lesson from it and not do it again. And getting coins graded, with the time involved, the degree of knowledge that you need, and the costs involved, you could quite easily lose money if you got a coin graded. So, you know, the people that have spent money on all of these 5-cent pieces in here, there's a good chance that every single coin in there they lost money on. There's a very good chance, because there's no top pops or anything like that in there. They're all what are considered mid grades. It doesn't mean they're circulated. They're still excellent uncirculated coins and gems and things like that, but they're not the top grades, and that's what people are chasing. So that's getting coins graded. I wish there was a sure thing about making money out of coins, but there isn't. And, you know, Catherine and I have been here for 6 years and we're still here. So if there was a sure thing, we would have figured it out by now, and we haven't. Right, let's have a look at some comments before we move on. Hello, Peter. Hello, Jason. Yeah, we're commenting on. Hello, Cam. Hello, Michelle. David Skillen says, I like this chat. So important for registry reasons, but it seems such a lottery to get a good grader working that day. For me, it's pennies. David, our perception of a penny's grade is as susceptible to emotion as what the PCGS graders are. Now, the difference between us and the PCGS graders is that at least 2 people look at that particular grade. So if they're both having a bad day, well, maybe you're going to get a lower grade, but the chances of them both having a bad day are minimal. And then there's a third person who looks at it. So Whereas we, as collectors, we want the best for our coins, and we are prone to overestimating coins when we have a positive emotional attachment to it. I myself, when I'm grading coins for listing up on our website, I have to be very conscious of what sort of mood I'm in. And, you know, if I'm not feeling it that day, I'll put the stuff aside and I'll come back to it another day. PCGS are not infallible. In no ways are they infallible, but the consistency of their grading would far surpass any single individual in my estimation. Because, as I said, grading, you know, we want it to be technical and scientific, but it's impossible to avoid emotions and our mood and our thought processes. So, you know, I understand it feels terrible sometimes, some of the grades you get, but, you know, sometimes I think that's because we have too high expectations for them. Nelson says, who was the dealer involved in the clean gold poppy coins? Yep, okay, I'll just leave that one. And Les says, great admission, Mark. We lose money. Being honest with oneself is not for all collectors. Look, there's no doubt that coin dealing has the same thrill as treasure hunting. And men in particular, whether it's coin dealing or antiques or militaria or gold prospecting, they all want to talk about the deal and the big wins that they've had. And I come from a different background. I'm a sort of an engineer, so, you know, I look at these things and go, well, there's no one always makes money. It's just not possible. No one never makes mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and anyone who tells you differently, I just wouldn't believe them. So, you know, every coin dealer makes mistakes, and it's all about making as few as you can. Right, that's it. Next week is the 30th of June, so that's the last Monday of the month. So that's question and answer day. The last few question and answer days have been absolute busts because we haven't got any questions. So please, if you are watching out there, hit me with your questions before next Monday so that I can answer some questions. Or even better, come and join in live on Facebook and ask the question live and put me on the spot and see if you can make me make another mistake. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you to Peter for the coin show report. Thank you to Catherine for giving me the news story about the Bluey coins, and thank you for everyone who's interacted with me today. Without the interaction, I wouldn't do this. And some weeks when there is no interaction, I don't feel like doing it. So please, if you are here, make sure you say hello, ask questions, tell me how stupid I am. I don't care. And you know, it just makes it worthwhile doing. All right, that's it. Bye for now, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Happy collecting, and we'll see you same time next week.